didn't know there was a game named after Chuck Wagon. So, Sunday school lady, why did the Israelites have so many rules that applied just to them?
You see, the Israelites were doing something no one had done since the Garden of Eden. They were going to live with God. God would bless them in amazing ways, but living with a holy, powerful God in a world full of sin and temptation was very tricky. In fact, it was downright dangerous.
Dangerous? How so, Sunday school lady?
Well, Moses tried to teach the Israelites the fear of the Lord.
Wait, we're supposed to be afraid of God?
No, not like you'd be afraid of a scary movie or a mean person. It really means respect. Think about fire. Fire is a wonderful thing. It heats our homes. It cooks our food. But if we don't respect the power of fire, if we get careless with it, it'll burn our house down.
Sometimes we can think about God as if he were, Santa Claus. Just a goofy old guy who lives to bring us candy and toys. We all like the idea of Santa Claus, but we don't really respect Santa Claus. I mean, what's the worst thing he could do? Not give us some toys? When we think about God like he's Santa Claus, we don't really take God very seriously. God isn't Santa Claus. He does not exist to bring us toys. He created the universe. This is the sun. Well, actually, it's a styrofoam ball that we painted yellow, but it's representing the sun. The sun is an incredible thing. Dr. Schniffenhausen?
Yeah, our sun releases as much energy as 1 trillion nuclear bombs every second. Science tells us that energy cannot be created. It can only change from one form to another. So one of the big unanswered questions of science is, where did all this energy come from in the first place?
Science has no answer for this question. The only reasonable answer, it came from God.
Yeah, but it isn't just the energy of our sun. Our galaxy holds at least 100 billion suns, and the universe holds at least 100 billion galaxies. So 100 billion galaxies, each filled with 100 billion suns, each putting out the energy of 1 trillion nuclear bombs every second. And all that energy came into existence just because God spoke.
I am officially freaking out.
I don't think Santa Claus could do that.
The Israelites had to learn to take God and his laws very seriously, and they had to learn the hard way.
Like how?
Well, as soon as God's special tent, the tabernacle, was finished, Moses' brother Aaron and his sons were picked to be priests, in charge of presenting the people's offerings to God. No sooner had they become priests than 2 of Aaron's sons ran into God's tent to present him with an offering, completely ignoring the rules God had given for how they were supposed to do that.
Uh-oh.
Did they get a timeout?
No, they dropped dead.
Dead? Dead?
Yes, dead. And believe me, the other priests took God's laws a little more seriously after that. Another time, a bunch of Israelites started complaining about God's plan. They didn't want to be in the desert. They were saying God's plan was wrong, that God didn't know what he was doing.
Oh dear. They said that to the creator of the universe?
I don't want to know what happened next.
Their sin was punished. Part of the camp burst into flames and burned down. When another group of Israelites sinned against holy God, the ground opened up and swallowed them. Another time, poisonous snakes came into the camp and started biting everyone who had sinned.
It's like Egypt and the plagues all over again.
Yep, the Egyptians learned the hard way that sinning against God can lead to death. And now the Israelites were learning that this was true for them too. Trying to live so close to a holy God was very hard.
So, did they give up?
Some of them wanted to. Some even wanted to go back to Egypt and be slaves again. But by the end of the 40-year timeout and Moses' big pep talk, the children of Israel were excited to be God's holy nation again and were ready to follow their new leader Joshua into the promised land. And that brings us to the end of the first big section of the Bible, the Pentateuch.
So there you have it, the first 5 books of the Bible, better known as the Pentateuch. Next time, we'll talk about the...
Cut!
What now?
We need a big finish, remember? With singing and dancing, maybe sit on a riverboat.
A riverboat? Where are we going to get a riverboat?
Not my problem. I'm the stage manager. Tell us about the Pentateuch with singing and dancing on a riverboat. Go!
Oh, look, a riverboat.
The Bible, it's not a fluke that it all starts out with the Pentateuch. 5 little books that tell the story of God.
And Adam and Eve and Joseph and...
Sometimes called 5 books of Moses.
He's the one whose life composes.
The storyline of all these books, with the exception of Genesis. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers.
Read a little every day before you slumber.
Cap it all off with a trip through Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy.
Parts are fun, others not so much.
With sinning and flooding and plagues and such. Whether you're German or French or Dutch.
We can all learn a thing from the Pentateuch.
That's not right. Whether you're a king or a queen or a duke.
We can all learn a thing from the Pentateuch. Genesis is the introduction.
Tells why the world has ceased to function.
Quite the way God intended it from the start. From the start, from the very beginning. Sin came in and made a mess of
All the ways God was gonna bless us.
because we did not trust Him with all our hearts.
And now we've fallen, the world is fallen. Oh yes, we've fallen away from God. It's a tragedy, nasty tragedy. And now we're broken, our hearts are broken, and our world is seriously flawed.
It's all messed up. But God's gonna launch His rescue plan.
That starts with Sarah and Abraham.
And the big promise for Jacob and all his kids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12.
Then in Egypt, they get stuck.
Slaves to Pharaoh, out of luck.
Till God told Moses He'd help them.
And that's what he did.
You bet your bippy.
We see in Exodus they have success because Moses respects our God and His decrees.
That's a fancy word for law.
And now it's Sinai, the laws get piled up high.
God asked if they will try.
And they agree.
Leviticus is a bunch of rules. In Numbers, the Israelites act like fools.
40 years later, Moses schooled them again.
Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy. We'll try harder, the young one said.
Moses gets older, now he's dead. Follow Joshua instead, all the way to the promised land.
We like the Bible, it's not a fluke that it all starts out with the Pentateuch. 5 little books that tell the story of God.
And Eve and Adam and Joseph and...
Whether you're a king or a queen or a duke.
We can all learn a thing from the Pentateuch. Before we get to Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we really need to understand the Pentateuch.
Bravo! Wonderful! Just what we needed.
Are we done?
Just savoring the moment. Okay, we're done. You gotta admit that was pretty good, huh?
Yes, that was pretty good.
Okay, done!
Well, that's the Pentateuch. We learned where we came from, where sin came from, how it affected and infected our world. But most importantly, we learned how God used one family to launch a rescue plan and began to build a physical kingdom, a place that we could see and touch, where sinful people could once again live with a holy God. But it wasn't very easy.
So, what happens next? Do they ever get the hang of living with God?
Does Joshua really lead them into the promised land? Do they really start God's kingdom on earth?
We'll get into all that next time.
I knew he'd say that. He's so predictable.
See you then.
What a ridiculous musical number that was, with the boat and the puppets and the dancing.
Yes, ridiculous.
Not like my days on the stage.
You were on the stage.
You knew that. I starred in The King and I.
Were you the king?
No, I was the I.
You were the you?
No, I was the I.
I was the I?
You were the... I was the... Oh, never mind.
That was a lovely musical number, wasn't it?